Basketball is very good.
Hello, and welcome to NBA Group Chat. My name is Chris Ryan. I am joined by Danny Chau.
Hello.
Justin Verrier.
Hi.
Haley O'Shaughnessy. Oh, it's a new look for you.
I know, it's tired of saying hello.
Guys, great day in the NBA. Any day is a great day in the NBA because that means there's basketball, and we're here to talk about it. We were going to start with the Thunder. I'm wearing a Thunder hat. I feel like the Ringer is getting a rep for being anti-Thunder, and I just want to be a bulwark against that, you know?
Counterpoint, everyone is turning anti-Thunder.
We'll get to the Thunder in just a second.
Right.
I do want to lead with LeBron, just because Justin's eyes lit up at the thought of the King coming to his hometown. Well, not your adopted hometown, I guess.
Because Connecticut, Hartford, Connecticut?
Yeah, so there was an article. Did it go up today?
Yes, on ESPN.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically it was just kind of reading the tea leaves of what's going on with LeBron, Brian Windhorst, Ramona Shelburne. I think some of didn't really pinpoint any team specifically, but it kind of laid out just, the groundwork for what's going on with him. It's basically saying, let's wait till the end of the year. Let's see how these teams do. I just thought it was interesting, some of the nuggets they dropped in there, specifically about the Rockets.
Okay.
That's a team I think that is kind of built momentum as kind of the destination du jour of one LeBron James. Jonathan Sharks wrote about it for us on The Ringer.
Dynamic had a USA Today thing about it.
Right.
Yeah.
So there are whispers in the background that this could be a legit destination. And I think it was just kind of pointing out that maybe the ties to Chris Paul aren't necessarily what's going to dictate it. So
Sure.
I don't know. Danny, you had some thoughts, right?
Do I really don't.
Is that more because you're just like, it's way too early to start wondering where LeBron should go?
I mean, kind of. This is kind of the news cycle that happened in 2010 when he was planning his decision back then. It was like basically every team that he went to that was a possible destination, there would be some sort of piece that came out being like, oh, let's lay out the possibility here. It's just like
Oladipo and Turner, could that be the
place?
place?
Too early. It's a little too early for me.
Right.
LeBron once liked a picture of an Indy 500 car. Haley, is this something that you want for your life? Is Laker LeBron?
Laker LeBron?
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
It
I
is.
thought you were going to say Rockets LeBron, which I do think would work out in a way that the Thunder Big Three hasn't. But because we've seen like Chris Paul, he doesn't need to handle everything all the time. And I thought that he was lying when he said that's like not what he wanted, because I'm like, you're Chris Paul. But I do think that it would work out in a way. I mean, Miami is a good example of him working out with two other really talented players.
But he was definitely the alpha there, and he was
he was. But
Wade and Bosch changed their games to adjust to him.
Right.
And we are getting to that point where LeBron is at once the best player in the league, but I do think that if he were to move teams again, I guess if he went to the Lakers and the Lakers essentially like built the team around him, we wouldn't be saying this. But if you were to go to the Rockets, I think that there would be an adjustment, and that actually does segue in talking about the Thunder a little bit, who won last night 100-95 against the critical darling Indiana Pacers. If you have not had a chance, please read Kevin O'Connor's piece about Victor Oladipo on The Ringer this week. It's really great, and he just goes into real great detail about how eating gluten will turn you into not eating gluten will turn you into an all-star shooting guard, apparently.
I will never be an all-star shooting guard.
Yeah, eating gluten will make you a good blogger, though.
Can we just go fake news, real news? Like, you just stop eating gluten and you get swole like that? He looks incredible after
Let's
like
ask
2
Bill
weeks.
Simmons.
But like, it's like May 15th to June 3rd. That's nuts.
Yeah.
And he just looks like a completely different person. There's this Instagram with a before and after.
I just want to know what he is eating instead of gluten.
Yeah.
Like, I eat sandwiches at least twice a week. Like, is
There's
it mostly
gluten-free
plant-based?
bread.
What's going on?
There's gluten-free bread out there.
Okay. So he still has
Just
a
don't
little
eat bread.
grain. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well,
What is it? What is the upside of gluten-free bread?
you still have imitation bread, I guess.
But is it like the carbs or what?
I honestly have no idea. This is the worst conversation we could possibly be having for me.
I guess it's like O'Doul's. You just need that in your life.
Yeah, you just
regardless
want
of the
the
content.
sense memory. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So let's go from O'Doul's to the Thunder. They won a game last night. They won a game despite Melo, George, and Russ going 10 for 45 from the field. After the game, and I'm paraphrasing for the LOLs, but Melo basically said that one of the problems they've been facing is the shots that they're getting are too good. And that they're all used to like creating their own shots, creating their own space, having to create their own offense. And the few times per game that the ball does swing to the open man, they're almost stunned with the opportunity.
I love that.
Strongly disagree.
Yeah, quick snap poll. What do you think of that?
I love when anyone can say something is too good.
That is true.
Never too good. Yeah, nothing can ever be too good.
I think, now, to be fair, I'm definitely rewriting Melo's quote, but not significantly.
No, and I think it's telling that now after a Thunder game, pretty much all of NBA Reddit is like plays where Melo is like full of shit.
Yeah.
It's like Melo doesn't get back on
Reddit
defense.
/ Justin.
Yeah, you can, I wish I had my own page. Someone should do that. No, but it's like Melo not getting back on defense, or Melo kind of glaring at Russell Westbrook because Russell Westbrook didn't get back on defense. It's really turning in. Like, it feels like for a while it was very much against Russ, but now it feels like the tide is turning toward Melo because he is kind of the squeaky wheel of this entire operation.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Haley.
Yes.
The Thunder feel like a college football team to me now because it feels like every game they play means so much. It's under so much scrutiny. The same way like in college football, they're just like, well, did you win? But did you win by enough? And did you win? Like, did you have a cool, like, was this, if you did get a victory, was it against an opponent that we can like actually tells us something about your performance? And that's unlike any other team out there right now. Like who are 16-11 or 14-14, and it's like, oh, good job, Pelicans. You guys are keeping it together.
Yeah.
But the Thunder,
Yeah, it's like they didn't win again. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? They haven't won the last 4 of 6 or whatever. I'm just making that number up. But college football, they play like a 7th or an 8th of the games.
Sure,
So
yeah.
those are definitely more important, but I know that the heat is on them. But I also think it's like the same problems with them are consistent through everyone. Melo won't spot up. Russ won't move without the ball. I mean, there's that video going around showing all these examples of him passing the ball away, and if it's not his possession, he's just hanging out at the
Literally
three-point line.
out,
He just
like,
is
Yeah,
35 feet
yeah,
away
and
from the
and
basket.
Paul George won't like initiate his own offense. You know, I don't know what the deal is, but he's like taken a back seat to not being quite as involved in that sense. And so I think that it's kind of off-putting for him too.
Do you know who isn't struggling right now?
go for it. So have you always been a Brenus hive? Is this recent? Is it because of this your similarities in like in beard structure?
I wish I had the chops that guy has, both playing wise and facial hair wise. No, honestly, I remember before the season hearing about like how he was set to like break through before. I think they even got Melo. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then when I was like required to have a take, I was like, that's my take.
Brenus is the key.
and now it's just come to life. So I guess it's the moral is just stick to your guns and hope that they are correct.
Danny, you're a connoisseur of offense. 7 seconds or less changed your life.
Changed my life.
The other night, you tweeted a lovely Brett Brown drawn up play. What was that one? The Sixers play, like double snap.
You got gifts, dog?
It was snap double. Well, no. I was sharing from a tweeter, I believe. His name is Ryan Wynn.
Okay.
Great X's and O's guy. You should follow him on Twitter. Yeah, where were you going?
Well, I was just wondering, like, as so so you do recognize good plays when you see them.
Sure.
Billy Donovan came out and was pretty chippy about, he's like, look, the thing that you guys need to understand is that I love the way our offense is playing, and I think we're really moving the ball. They are last in the league in passes per game, so he's wrong. There's a lot of things that are up for debate, but this one isn't.
Yeah.
That being said, is there anything about this Thunder offense that you think is working, and is there anything that you're like, oh, you can kind of see where this they could just have some small improvements and get better, or is it too many of the wrong pieces trying to fit together?
I keep going back to the idea that the shots that they're getting are too good, and so basically Donovan is alluding to the fact that his players aren't accustomed to having that kind of rhythm, and they basically aren't being able to generate that kind of rhythm. The weird thing is I've never really thought of Westbrook as a rhythm player. He's just a guy who has like all out energy, and that energy is kind of what sustains him on the court. So I don't think he's factoring into this, but like Melo and Paul George, they both come from very different situations where, again, they're both alphas or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I guess that kind of plays into the whole offense here. Like they don't know what to do with their hands when they have an open shot, I guess. But I don't know. Like I feel like that is a pointed, comment to his other two stars, because you can't really do anything with Westbrook in that scenario, because back when Westbrook and Durant were kind of 1A, 1B, Durant was a mismatch for everyone in the league, so it's not like he needed to get into rhythm. He was kind of always in that rhythm. They both kind of played off the fact that neither of them needed to get into a rhythm because they could just generate whatever they needed. With Melo and George, it's an adjustment, but I actually do
think that the one person that we haven't really been hearing from much in this whole season, more or less, and it's not that unusual given his relationships to the media, but Russell doesn't really talk that much, you know what I mean? And his answers, you can only evaluate them based on their tone. You can't really evaluate them based on the quotes themselves. So a lot of his answers are just like, we just have to play better. He sounds like Belichick, honestly. He's just like, we just have to do our jobs better and execute better down the stretch. But you get some of that kind of more thoughtful and engaging stuff from Paul, George, and Carmelo, and even from Donovan. It's interesting because I just feel like Russell is so stubborn and won't kind of even say like, look, like I have a speed that I play at and these guys need to play at that speed, or maybe I should play off the ball in terms of initiating the offense, because for as much as my full court bull rushes can get us a lot of points in a game, they're clearly like leaving out for the other 4 players who are like used to a different kind of setup. I don't know. Yeah. I will say this. I don't mind where they're at the season, but you know, this is the same thing we had with Cleveland at the beginning of the year. We were like, what's going to happen with Cleveland? Or their defense is so bad, they're going to figure it out. And then they just rattle off double-digit win streak and are basically they're basically winning all their games and just dropping little ones here and there now. I just cannot. That is not something I can see for the Thunder this year. I don't see them rattling off 10 in a row. I think that they're going to squeak into the playoffs, and I have a really bad feeling about the way that this all ends up next summer. What do you think?
Well, yeah, because it's like if they don't figure it out, Paul George isn't going to be around.
Right.
I think
maybe Melo.
Yeah, maybe Melo too. I think that a lot more of this might be on Russ wanting more, and maybe that's why he's so quiet. Maybe he wants Paul George to be more of an alpha. I feel like this is like a weird comparison. You don't think so?
I would say it's
because I'm wondering if like he expected it to be kind of like, okay, finally, like Katie left, like I had to do everything. You know what I mean? And now he's like,
well, this is the thing. We don't know. We don't know whether he actually secretly loved it being Russ and the Bad News Bears and him having 45-point games against Orlando Magic to win in the last second. And every night it was like Rudy or something.
Yeah, but don't you think he knows with the way he plays that that's not sustainable?
Well, it seemed like he was having a really good time last year. And not only just playing the way he was playing, but even the way he turned it into like WWE off the court, just kind of feeding into the Kevin Durant thing. I think that's an interesting parallel where Durant, for obvious reasons, but also because of like his personality, he kind of shies away from that whole part of it, the cupcake stuff. Like, yeah, he took some shots after he won a title, but he really kind of abstained from that conversation, whereas Russ was going full on trolling with his outfits, with what he was saying in interviews. And so I think he likes the theatrics, and I think he likes kind of being the antagonist, just like in general, just like that's like his base level.
But being the villain gets old. Remember that,
for
like
us,
LeBron?
For sure.
Yeah, well, no, even for the players, I think. And yeah, Westbrook is kind of like to an extreme with his personality. But when LeBron was in Miami, you know, after the first year, he was like, being the villain sucks.
Yeah, but by the end of Miami, he was like doing commercials where he's riding bikes around Miami with kids. And it's like, oh, LeBron, Miami, this is so fun, the Heatles. You know, it's like.
Right.
So,
the other thing is like LeBron feeds off joy. Like, early in his Cavs run, there were like the team there, like it didn't have a lot of stars, but they got along so well. Like I remember when he was on those MVP runs, just those photos of where they would pretend to take team photos, like right before the game. Like LeBron is like a really joyful, good teammate, and it seems like the villain part of it like took him out of who he was, whereas I feel like Russ almost like that is his base level, like that's who he is, and it's more drawing out the good stuff out of him in order to make him successful. Like when I look at Russ these days, I just see him going full Kobe to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting.
And this team is playing like that Lakers team with Nash and Howard, basically.
100%. Yeah. And it's interesting to see Russ do that in this age, whereas like what we knew about the game, kind of like the advanced analytics, like what like leads to good basketball, kind of caught up with Kobe, whereas like the ground was laid for Russ to where like if he kept playing this way, it was going to catch up to him. And I think that's part of why the backlash has been so significant.
So that's a super team that's obviously not working out. The Rockets, though, we haven't. I feel like I don't talk enough about them. Probably. I have to say, though, it was an unremarkable 108-96 victory over the Hornets last night. They were home. The Hornets did not look like they wanted to be there. I feel like the Kemba Walker's full, like, his like white undershirt is like a metaphor for how he's feeling right now. I just haven't quite figured out how. But at one point in the game, the Rockets went on a 25-0 run. That was the closest thing I've seen to the Warriors, other than the Warriors, in the last 4 years. And it was the first time that I was like, they could go after these guys. Also, just watching the way that D'Antoni staggers minutes and watching Chris Paul just incinerate the Hornets' second unit.
He lives for the shit.
It is unbelievable. And then when he's playing with Harden, I remember he had said when he first got there, and he was only played like a couple of preseason games, and he played like the first game, obviously, before he got injured.
In Drew League.
But he was like, this is so cool. I don't have to dribble the ball as much. I don't have to orchestrate everything. And I was like, come on, man. Like, you're really going to not want to orchestrate everything? And then last night, I was just watching, and he's like standing on the wing with his hands on his knees.
Yep.
Like the kind of thing that would usually get you yanked from like a youth basketball game. And he's just like, I'm chilling. Like, this is fine. Harden can have an ISO. They lead the league in isolation plays, percentage of isolation plays per game. I don't know. The idea of just Paul being on the court, they have a plus 37 net rating. These are just like insane stats. And the fact that this is what D'Antoni's doing other than Donovan, different than Donovan, is he is like, I have all these pieces. On any given night, I can rest this guy a little bit, but still play him. I can throw this lineup out there. I can play Ryan Anderson at 5. I can play Chris Paul against a backup point guard, which is essentially torture. I mean, I actually still find them a little dull to watch, but they are actually, I do think they are a threat to the Warriors for sure.
Well, that's where the Warriors comparison comes in, right? Or even people, asking the question, can they beat the Warriors? Is that the great thing about Golden State has always been that one of their guys can be gone and they'll still be good. Mm-hmm. And something that's so clear with Harden and Chris Paul is that, yeah, they play together and it's amazing, but they can also play without each other and still be great.
Yeah, they're definitely an interesting team to juxtapose with the Thunder, just because you look at what D'Antoni has been able to do. Chris is already laughing at it. Just what D'Antoni's been able to do with two guys, two stars who seemingly have like overlapping skill sets that might butt as a result of only having the one ball. And the way he's been able to stagger them and just take advantage of what they do so well has been amazing. And the fact that Harden had his moment, he's still probably the leader for MVP, if not LeBron James. And now you see Chris Paul kind of get back from the injury and kind of kick it into a second gear where he could still be that guy. And, like, honestly, you should show Melo these games. Like, this is what you can do if you just mesh with what everyone else is doing.
I'm going to orchestrate a trade to Houston next year.
It's a lot easier to buy in when you're winning.
Yes.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
that's the thing.
Yes,
right.
But also the Thunder aren't winning
No,
because
but
of Melo.
He's right. There was a play last night where there was like Paul was bringing it up, and he had Ryan Anderson and Trevor Ariza on the wings, and Trevor Ariza was wide open and had run the full floor, like had done something on defense to get the turnover, and then like sprinted. And I think you could just feel like he was just like, and for my reward, I get the ball. And Chris Paul sort of looked off. He looked him, and then looked to Ryan Anderson on the left, and Ryan Anderson sunk like a 33-footer. Yeah. And it's like, if that goes in, everybody will be happy. If it doesn't, Trevor Ariza is like, what are you doing? Like, somebody else is like, hey, I was like running the court. Like, I went the whole length. Like, you got to slow it down and hit me up.
I mean, the thing is, they also take like 43s a game. So, like, everyone is getting those shots.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, this Chris Paul is exactly the Chris Paul I thought was going to happen, because Jonathan Tjarks has written about this in the past. He's just so smart. He's so good in the regular season because he's so smart and he's so perceptive of every team's weaknesses, especially like a team like the Hornets, who aren't very good. He's going to be able to beat up on these teams with his eyes closed. And so this is just kind of like he's playing, shoots and ladders right now.
Yeah. Well, I feel like Paul is the type of guy, based on the conversations we have about him, based on his lack of success in the playoffs, that's the type of thing that eats at him. Like, he's going to do whatever is possible to change that. Melo, I'm sorry to say, is the type of guy who's just going to go off and do Melo and, like, sell hoodies now.
Well, I think the other thing to consider with all these Thunder comparisons, which I agree with all of them, is that Chris Paul, and James Harden talked before he went there. And Chris Paul was probably like, this is exactly what I want, and this is exactly how I feel like we'll be better is if I'm off the ball. And with Paul George and with Melo, they were both like, look, get me out of here, to their old teams. So they didn't really pick the Thunder. They didn't really pick Russ.
It was more about leaving that situation than finding the best situation.
Right.
Yes, and I think we've talked about this before, about the idea of whether the Melo trade was a trade too much. Was just like one extra like heat check move. And
Are
if
you doubting
no,
Presti?
I'm just saying we've talked about this. If they had just run out Russ, PG, Adams, and then shooters and defenders, they probably would be in more games, and I actually think the expectations for them would be a little bit better adjusted. Let's just do some rapid fire questions based on.
We can't even talk about the Rockets without mentioning.
Sorry. Who's your favorite Rockets bench guy? I wanted to ask that.
PJ Tucker.
PJ Tucker.
Paleolithic. Marcus Smart.
He's not a bench guy, but I just want to shout out Capella. Capella's awesome.
Oh my God, he's
Capella
great.
is basically like, let's reboot DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Luke is my favorite.
Is he gonna be out for a while?
He is going to be out for a little while. He has a shoulder thing we were talking about before we recorded. But, like, this dude is basically one of the most important role players on one of the most important teams, like, at the end of his career. That's, like, amazing.
Plus, minus God. Anybody else besides those guys that you want
This
to shout?
is so like whatever, Haley. That's not creative, but it's Eric Gordon.
Yeah.
How could it not be
Mr.
Eric
Basketball
Gordon?
Indiana, yeah.
I mean, he's amazing. He could be like a very important player for another team, and he says like, "I'm gonna hang here and kill."
Oh man, remember those Pelicans days?
I try not to.
Here's some rapid fire questions that are kind of drawn from last night's action before we move forward. Haley, is Hezonja good?
After last night, I'm gonna say yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I want him to be good so badly.
And now we clear out for Danny.
My God. Okay, so I haven't had that much joy watching a Magic game in at least 2 years. He was incredible. So there was
What happened 2 years ago?
good question. I don't remember.
Got 20 and 20. They lost to the Bucks.
There was a play. Hezonja almost dunks an alley-oop. He gets fouled on it, so he gets the 2 free throws. But there was another play where he was dribbling the ball up the court. Elfrid Payton was calling for the ball because he's the point guard. Hezonja waves him off, throws a pass straight to their big man. I can't remember who actually caught the ball and scored, but it was just like, holy shit.
It was Vooch. It was like that. He had like
Vooch,
threw like a bullet pass underneath to Vooch. Yeah.
Hezonja should be playing point guard. He should be playing stretch 4 for them.
Yes.
He's
Durant.
awesome. Yeah,
He's
and
Durant.
Hezonja Hive
100%.
on
Croatian
Twitter has gotten to me. So
How about you,
we're here.
Chris?
I don't know if he can dribble in the NBA. Just FYI, there was a couple of like I dribble like that moments. Haley, is Trey Lyles good?
Almost.
Okay. Almost?
Yeah.
Justin.
Probably not.
He had a really good dunk last night, and he's getting minutes. That's why I thought it would, yeah.
Yeah, I think it speaks more to the Nuggets just having so many like backup 4s and that like none of them work every single night.
Yeah.
It's good that they have a lot of them. They could just like shuffle
Right, and
them
he's
up
in his 3rd year, which
Yeah.
is usually when guys pick up.
I loved him coming out of college though. I thought he was like because he played that 3 in that like huge Kentucky team. I thought like, oh, maybe if you just slide him down a little bit, he has enough shooting. But he's almost like too much of a big for that stretch 4 these days, I think.
He had a really good game in front of his hometown in Indiana. He was hitting. He was like 4 or 5 from 3 in that game.
Yeah.
So he looked really good. And with him, it was just like he had a really promising rookie year, and then last year he kind of was put to the end of the bench because they were a playoff team. They couldn't really risk putting out a youngster out there. But with him, it was just a matter of getting minutes, getting an opportunity. I think he's fine. I don't know if he's like their future.
Here's just this is something I would love to see in the NBA is that every player just basically has to go play for their hometown, their home state or hometown team at some point. Because the Oladipo and on the Pacers thing has really gotten me like, what if Lyles went back to the Pacers? That'd be dope. Like everybody should just go back to their hometowns just for one season.
Only if they like their hometowns. Maybe he's like, this
I don't
is
care
Indiana.
about that. I just want to see them in their hometown.
Yeah, last night was the first Pacer game I think I watched all season, so maybe not. Maybe not the Pacers specifically.
Okay, last one before we move on. Are the Raptors the best team in the East?
Not quite. Not quite. Cleveland, LeBron still exists. Boston has been good, so not
Justin?
Raptors still a snooze fest to me.
You know what? I'm holding out hope that their bench returns. Sorry for the ringer curse, you guys, but I will stick with it. They are the best team in the East.
My contribution to the Ringer curse broke last night because Portland won.
Okay.
So, and
The Ringer curse is that every time we write about a team and we're like, look
Glowingly.
who's here. Look who's
Yeah.
arrived.
Yeah.
And just thank God that nothing has impacted Giannis yet. But for the most part, when we write about teams, they tend to go on losing streaks.
I think the subtle thing about this is that we just write about all the teams.
Yes, and then we can take credit for all the streaks.
Yeah, so eventually we're going to be wrong at some point.
I really want to say that the Raptors are the most complete team in the East. And
Okay.
sure. There's an argument
but
for
it's
that.
hard because like I watched them against Phoenix last night, and I was like, this is impossible to judge any team against Phoenix. But I liked all the different looks they could throw at them, and I liked how even towards the end of the game, I felt like they were going to Jonas a lot, and it was just like they can be big, they can be small, they can be all shooters, they can be running you off the court. So I like the variety of looks they can throw, but I think Boston also could do that. So actually, I do have one more rapid fire question, and it's: will the Jazz ever win again?
I'd like to read off their schedule.
Hit me.
In the future, on December 15th, they play the Celtics. After that, back to back, they play the Cavs. Then they'll play the Rockets. Then they'll play the Thunder, which maybe. Yeah. Then they play the Spurs. Then they play the Thunder again. Then they play the Nuggets, which hopefully will be some relief. Then the Warriors, Cavs, and Pelicans.
How many times did they play the Cavs?
The Cavs are, yeah. They're twice in that.
That's wild.
Yeah. It's terrible.
Do you think they'll win again?
Maybe
in
once.
2017.
Oh, in 2007? Yeah, I think at least 2 times.
Okay.
I think one of those Thunder games will be a bailout.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. What's the problem?
With what?
The Jazz?
The problem with them never beating any of those teams?
Any teams. Aren't they also like, how many have they lost? Like, aren't they like losing games now?
So, yeah, they're on a 4-game winning streak.
Oh, you mean the
losing
current?
streak.
Okay.
Yeah.
The current problem.
They're on a 4-game losing streak.
Right.
Their last loss was to the Bulls.
Not great. But Mirotic season. So
yeah, Mirotic is back. This is a segment we like to call Take Tank. We're dusting this off. We did do a video of Take Tank a long time ago. You can find it on all of the proper Ringer video channels like YouTube and etc. We can even tweet it out maybe if you guys are unfamiliar with it. But basically the idea is this. You present a take. The panel of sharks here decide whether or not they're going to invest in that take based on its validity. So we're going to start with Haley.
You know, I'd actually like to go last.
Oh,
I want
sure.
everyone to be warmed up.
Okay.
You know, ready with their investments.
Okay.
Wow.
Justin.
All right. Hello, Sharks. I have the perfect investment for you guys. I would like to introduce to you a guy I call Paul George. Paul George, all-star in the NBA, also going to be a free agent next year. I think everybody is assuming that he's going to just flee to Los Angeles, his hometown? Yeah?
Yeah, like right. He's LA adjacent, right?
Okay, he's in the general vicinity.
Palmdale? Yeah.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, he probably has a vast collection of sunglasses or something. So I would...
That's just because he owns a Sunglasses Hut franchise.
Yes, exactly. A lot of Ray-Bans. So I think it's assumed that he would go to Los Angeles. Maybe LeBron James would follow him there to be a part of that scene. I would say this. I think... James Harden had a good idea. Well, he got traded, but I think it worked out for him going from the Thunder to Houston. Paul George should follow him because that's where all good Thunder superstars go.
The Trevor Ariza upgrade button.
Yeah.
So how would that work? Tell us how that would work.
It would be very tough. I think the way you would work it is that Chris Paul and maybe some of the free agents that the Rockets have right now would have to take the pay cuts in order to work George into there. I think Paul is the type of guy who might be willing to do it. I thought it was interesting just in the story on ESPN today. Basically, LeBron isn't willing to go below the max. He's very interested in his agency, in just kind of being the CEO of the league sort of thing. And I think for me, that signals that the Rockets are going to be a tough fit, that he would really have to change his just general disposition and position on the way he approaches the league to fit there. I think George makes a lot of sense with what the Rockets are doing. They're already kind of doing that sort of team where they're playing a little bit small on the wings, but still with Capella. I think he would just be an upgrade over Trevor Ariza.
How many guys would they have to like get rid of and renounce in this process?
It would be tough.
Give me the ones that are going to hurt the most. Would they have to get rid of Eric Gordon?
Gordon, maybe.
Ryan Anderson.
Ryan Anderson is the big contract. I think he's making around $20 million, and as you've seen, he's kind of just fallen back into this role as like a giant spot-up shooter.
And Ariza as well, probably?
I think Ariza's a free agent, right?
Okay.
So he would be coming off the books. So.
Here's my thing with these teams that are having really hot starts or really great beginning parts of the season, and a lot of them are playing 10, 11 guys a night, and they're getting good minutes from them. Boston was running out. I thought there were guys coming in out of the crowd to play for Boston last night. If I'm Mike D'Antoni and you're this good, I would really, really want to see what I could do against the Warriors this season because I like the depth and I like the sort of the way you can mix and match a lineup. And I wouldn't want to give up too much to get Paul George. And I know that sounds weird, and Paul George is an elite perimeter defender and is a better player than Trevor Ariza and probably he's a better player than Eric Gordon. But I wouldn't want to lose too many pieces for that.
No, I get what you mean because even for Chris Paul, I was like, oh, that was my favorite thing about the Rockets.
Yeah.
They had a million guys.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with you. I want to see what they do against the Warriors this year. I guess it just comes down to what they could do in the playoffs, because obviously that's when your top guys are going to matter more than ever.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my Cayman Island shell company through a third party in Delaware make a shadow investment in this take, but I'm not willing to put my name on it. Danny, what's your take?
I'm out on this take because he's going to be a Warrior.
Okay.
So
You really think that's going to happen? Paul George to the Warriors? Where would he go? Like where can they fit him?
yeah,
Just Iguodala
well,
replacement?
I don't know. I've seen plenty of Warriors people say Paul George is the next one up.
If
So-
that happens, I'm officially getting into baseball.
I might not still do it.
If Machado goes to the Phillies and Paul George goes to the Warriors, I would consider that a sign, and then I would just become Mr. Baseball guy.
Yeah.
That you know that guy.
Otani seems interesting, so I could get on board with that.
All right, Danny, do you have a take?
Wait, I didn't tell you guys if I was buying or not.
Oh, sorry, Haley. Go ahead.
I know. I'm like, what?
My bad.
I will, because I'm under LeBron's agency, so I'm
yeah,
overpaid.
You're clutch.
Yeah, I've got extra, so I'll buy it. You've piqued my interest.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring this back to the Ringer Curses, and I just want to clear my name. So my take is Stan Van Gundy's decision to put Reggie Bullock into the starting lineup will basically supercharge the Pistons once again. They will steamroll their next 10 games, thereby absolving me from this curse and making me look like a genius again.
You know, they play the Hawks next. They have the Hawks today.
They played the Hawks. They played the Magic twice. It's just their last 7 games in which they've lost, which were immediately after a post that I
said,
wrote.
"Let's take the Pistons seriously."
That was like, it's time to take Andre Drummond and the Pistons seriously.
I remember.
Good
7
headline.
straight losses. Great headline.
Great headline.
It was very clickable.
Yes, a lot of engagement
Very
on that
clear about what
Yes,
you're saying.
exactly.
No, I ride for Reggie Bullock. Like, I remember when the Clippers drafted him, I was like, oh, this is the guy that the Clippers need. He's going to be the one that, like, opens
Didn't the
things
Clippers
up.
drafting him throw you off that though?
It should have. But I was just like, oh, spot-up shooter. This is what this team needs.
Yeah, and then he never played for 4 years.
He barely played. He was in the D-League, like, almost his entire career.
There are some teams you just get it together against, and I think that, no offense, but like the Hawks and the Magic.
Have
will
you
do that for
thought
them.
about? I mean, what are some? Have people been hitting you up and being like, "Can you write about this team? Can you write about?"
No.
I mean, have you gotten any of my burner tweets that are like, "I think Jason Tatum is really really needs the Danny Chau treatment."
No, I didn't even find this on Reddit myself. I think it was Sean Yu that had posted it in the Slack that brought it up to my attention, and I tweeted it out. I think a lot of people had a good laugh at that. I don't think anyone's seen it as like a malicious thing that I'm not like out to. Because look, I'm writing like
You're saying
lovingly
they're
about.
good. Yeah, you're not being like, get
Right.
this guy out of here.
But
No.
apparently, the people of Detroit, via one of our interns, Shocker, have asked me to apologize. And look, I'll apologize if I'm wrong about this take.
Do you think after that, then you'll have like the yips and you'll just write like super safe takes like this Steph Curry guy, like he's pretty good.
I mean, I wrote that about Kawhi last week. So like,
Yeah.
I care about you. I care about your ability to visit scenic Detroit in good health and just be able to stroll the streets and find the underground restaurants that nobody knows about. So I'll go 50% on this take if anybody wants to go in with me.
Yeah.
They're beating the Hawks.
Great.
I'll take
We'll
this,
go
yeah.
150% together. That's great. You're fully funded. Here's my take. Karl Anthony Towns. Unicorn. Great podcast guest on the JJ Redick podcast this week. Fantastic. Let me tell you something. He is never going to recover from the Karl Anthony Cantor nickname. Oh my God. Name an NBA superstar who has ever been saddled with a nickname that is like, you're bad at something, and has recovered from it.
Can't play Cantor.
Yeah, it's not great. Well, I will say it wasn't a nickname, but I feel like we've gotten past the James Harden can't play defense thing.
Have we?
At the very least,
Harden. Yeah,
yes.
sure. Right.
We don't like needle him every freaking night like we used to.
But I think that's probably also because he wasn't playing for Thibodeau. You know what I mean? And it was sort of the implication was that McHale maybe wasn't making him play defense, or that they were saying like, save yourself for the offense because you've got to do so much for us. Whereas Towns, I think the offense was there, and we were like, Tibbs is here. He's going to turn him into this defensive dynamo, and he's going to be the best player in the NBA, and he's going to be in the MVP conversation. And it's gone from that to his teammates openly yelling at him on the court, and I don't know where it originated from, but now people are joking about his nickname being Karl Anthony Cantor, and I just don't remember anyone making like funny Tim Duncan jokes or anything like that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it just feels like it's a vulnerability. So my take is that he is never recovering from this, and that he is always going to be a good stats bad team guy.
Well, it's always been like kind of an undercover thing about his defense. Not undercover, but it's like, who was watching Minnesota? You know what I mean?
You.
Minnesota. Yeah, and I don't know why, but me. Yeah, and now it's like a mainstream thing.
Yeah.
You know, he's not good at defense. So now people are like watching those games, of course, also because
It's a SoundCloud
Minnesota
tape that went into the charts. Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. So that's tough.
Yeah.
You actually have to start playing defense. Like if nothing changes, yeah, that nickname's riding with you.
I was already worried, but then he, for some reasons, tried to go at Joel Embiid on Joel Embiid's own Instagram.
Yes.
It's like, what are you thinking? And
Yes.
Joel immediately just like took him out.
Shut him
Like
down.
TKO, like
So
what
Joel
were you
was
doing?
like, it's a picture of him doing like his finger roll off the Euro step, and he's like, we Euro stepped through Minnesota, and Karl Anthony Towns got in Joel's Instagram comments and said,
Trash photo quality, bro.
no, this caption is as trash as the photo quality.
Right? It's like, what are you
I
doing?
got
And
it.
what did Joel say is like,
Better quality than your defense.
I gotta think that's
Like,
a
come
joke.
on, dog.
Arid.
I gotta think that's a joke. But even if a joke, like that cuts deep.
First of all, both those guys are dorks.
Yes.
That's really bad trash. Excuse me, sir, not as bad as your photo image quality, sir. It's like, all right.
Did you hear Joel like during one of their games talking about like how he likes to like make jokes? He's like, I've always been a really funny person, and I just like to joke around all the time. And I was like, funny people don't say that they're funny.
When do they play the Kings? Somebody's gonna rock Joel. Like somebody is really gonna do that.
He's gonna get bullied.
So what do
I
you guys
love him,
think?
though.
You guys committing to my venture?
I'm out. I believe in the youth.
Thanks, Danny.
Yeah, I think I might be out too. Too much potential.
Really?
Hardcore in.
Thanks.
He's a nerd though. Like
Right.
I'm out as on Cat as just
I
like
don't
a
need you, man. I
personality.
got Haley money. Let's go. Let's go mass production.
All right.
You're back. Clean up.
Here's my take. Trade George Hill. Okay.
Okay.
You already have De'Aaron Fox, right? You've already committed to playing him no matter how many turnovers, how many bad shots. It's clear that they're like, we need to make him a star. Let's give him these Donovan Mitchell minutes, right? Well, not minutes necessarily, because as I wrote earlier,
For TheRinger.com.
they're splitting their bench minutes and their starter minutes. They're the only team in the league to be doing that. But they're starting him. Frank Mason has proved to be good, or at least somebody that you should start and give serious time to and believe in. George Hill had that. There was this article that it was reported, so, you know, from sources, so we're not 100% on it, that said George Hill was under the impression that they would be going for a championship, which if that's something you seriously...
We can dial it back down. It
if
was
that's
a
something
playoff
you
run.
seriously
It was a playoff run.
believe...
Playoffs.
Okay. No, they said for a championship, though, right? They said for a championship run?
Where does George Hill get his scouting reports?
I know. I'm serious, like, sincerely, George Hill, if you really believed that, like, let's talk. You know what I mean? Like,
man.
I feel like I can
Somebody
help
get this
you.
guy a league pass account.
Yeah. But anyway, even if that's not true, that he's unhappy about that, or if that, you know, really transpired between
Right.
him and Perry, I can see in his body language that he's not happy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Only so many turnovers can happen before you discover, you know, that
That
you
he
don't want to be on
commits,
this
or that
team.
just also happened
No,
in,
the
in
rest of the
process.
team.
Okay.
It's a team of young guys.
Yeah.
That's just what young guys do.
This is the big question facing all these teams that are like investing in youth, whether it's Phoenix, whether it's Philly. You know, how do you go about getting these guys ready to play real NBA minutes? Do you do it by just throwing it out there and seeing if they can swim in the deep end, or do you bring in guys like JJ and Amir Johnson, or JJ and Zach Randolph and Vince Carter, and they eat into their minutes, but maybe they show them the ways of the force?
That's exactly what you need. You don't need someone like George Hill, who's like, this is
You
my
need Amir
time.
Johnson, who's like, I can start, or I
Yeah,
can play
you
5
even
minutes.
need,
I'm
you
really
need
not gonna-
Zebo
yeah.
because he's in this point of his career where he's like, yeah, this is what I'm gonna do. This is what I can do.
Yeah, I mean, it is a little weird. I am of the opinion that you don't need to necessarily be so binary about it. You don't need to be 100% young team, 100% old team, like going for it. I am a little worried that some of those veterans might give them too many wins, and maybe they'll end up being like third worst as opposed to first worst.
Sure.
But at the same time, like Fox is getting minutes, Hield is developing. A lot of their young guys are getting reps, and so for me, that's the only thing that really matters with this team. Those guys are playing, they're getting experience, and they'll figure out the rest later.
So trade George, though. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Especially
whatever
while
you
his
want to do.
value.
Yeah, that's fine.
We're a third of the way through the season. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He has the contract clause where you can't trade him until.
That would be sort of an ingenious, almost like baseball way of doing things.
Right.
Where it's like, oh, I'm just going to bring these guys in, and when it turns out I'm a seller, then I'll find somebody who needs point guard help, and I'll find somebody who wouldn't mind taking a flyer on Vince Carter going down the back stretch, and then I'll just play the kids and play for the lottery. I like that.
Yeah.
I like the take. George Hill is not like he's not setting Wall Street on fire, but I'm in.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we got to get out of here, but I want to do really quickly guess the narrative where we just decide, we project into tomorrow what we will be saying about tonight's Lakers-Cavs game. Are we, what do you guys think? Is this going to be LeBron meets his new teammates? Is it going to be Lonzo Ball gets totally screwed by LeBron? I feel like LeBron has taken it on himself to really torch guys like Ben Simmons over the course of the season. Do you think that's going to happen with Lonzo? So what do you think the narrative?
I think that the narrative is going to come after the game, because if LeBron is asked something about Lonzo, which he absolutely will be asked about Lonzo, if he says something glowing, which I'm predicting he will because he has before, then yeah, that's going to be the narrative, because that also is kind of like a hint to maybe he wants to be with the Lakers. Maybe he's really into Lonzo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he dodged those questions this morning. So at some point, he's going to have to address them. After the game isn't ideal, but he's kind of set himself up for this. I'm going to go on a limb here. I think Lonzo's going to have a breakthrough game, triple-double, and we're going to say that the Lakers are fun and talented, and they don't need LeBron James. That's my take.
So piggybacking off that,
how much did Magic Johnson just pay you?
Protect Lonzo.
You sound like a Twitter card that comes out when Lonzo has 11, 10, and a 10.
And they compare him to the first ever game that Magic
and he's also
Johnson
got 7
did
turnovers
that.
and his negative 19.
Those are my favorite ESPN stats, where it's just Lonzo's the first Lakers rookie in the first trimester of the first half of the season to average, 10 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists.
On a Tuesday.
Yeah, 5, 2, and 7 are his stats.
But so the last time Lonzo got a triple-double, Stu Lance, an announcer for the Lakers broadcast, could not stop talking about how he got his triple-double, his second career triple-double, on the exact same day or the exact same age that LeBron got his. 20 years and 23 days.
Wow.
So if Lonzo gets his triple-double against LeBron,
Basketball Reference is ruining us.
It's going to be game over.
No, I'm back in on Lonzo.
Yeah.
You see him wearing that Nas album cover with his face on it?
Yes.
I'm all in on this.
Okay. My guess the narrative is that the person we're going to be talking about after this Cavs-Lakers game is Brandon Ingram.
Tiny dog.
I think that all the attention is going to be on Lonzo, or it's going to be on LeBron. And in the meantime, I think on a night-to-night basis, Ingram is really starting to bring it, which is really what you want from these guys. It's not the 28-point explosion and then going away for 2 weeks. It's every night, you're the best player on the court. You're the guy. You're the guy's and his aggression and going to the hoop and watching how he's so uniquely gifted at making shots for himself with his size and his ability to just sort of use the entire backboard. It's almost like it is Durant-ish, but sometimes when I watch him, I'm just like, oh, this is kind of like the way Kyrie just finds these impossible angles. It's just in a Durant body.
This is a great LeBron pitch. This is a great LeBron
Well,
pitch.
I mean, look, the Ingram thing is really interesting because some people are like, Ingram is the untouchable, and some people are like, Ingram is the biggest trade piece you have if you need to include him in something.
I remember them talking about, though, that Ingram was the guy that they wanted to keep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And maybe not publicly saying
I think we were
he's
watching
the
him,
guy, but
yeah,
that we want to keep, but they were saying he's the guy.
And I remember watching him earlier in the season, and he still kind of had that deer with its legs tied together vibe to his game. And I feel like the aggression has really solved a lot of that. He's just I'm just going to the hoop and we'll see what happens. If I go to the line 20 times a game, that's great. Okay, so that's been it for Group Chat. For Haley, for Justin, for Danny, I'm Chris Ryan. We will have a show next week. I probably will not be on it, so happy holidays if you're listening. Thanks for listening to Group Chat, and I will talk to you next year.
Basketball is very good.